Welcome to the Voice of the American Supply Chain. I'm Brian Devine, and I'm going to be walking you through this four-part series about what's going on in the labor market in the supply chain. The topics that we'll be covering each week include a brief overview of the most recent employment data available from the Department of Labor and the other sources. We'll also provide some insight about the mindset of the hourly workforce. And we'll share some of the best practices that we hear about being implemented around the country. This information is really timely because many of the states are reopening some of their industries right now. Here are some of the sobering facts about the national labor market in response to COVID-19. New jobless numbers reveal that an additional 4.4 million workers filed for the first-time unemployment benefits last week, bringing the total number of first-time jobless claims to 26.5 million people over the last 5 weeks. And when you combine this new group of 26.5 million people to the 6 million workers who were already classified as being unemployed back in February, that would place our unemployment rate at about 19%. Many of you may remember back during the Great Recession of 2008, there were people who simply dropped out of the labor market. And it's too soon to see if that's going to happen as a result of this pandemic, but it's certainly possible. One of the most disturbing things from an employer's perspective is that even though the number of unemployed workers has skyrocketed in the last few weeks, the number of new applications that we're receiving around the country has not increased much at all. And in previous economic cycles, when we saw unemployment rates increase, we also saw a corresponding increase in the number of applicants. And we've not seen that recently. Through April 16th, job postings for all of the US have also fallen off significantly. And this is primarily due to a drop in tourism, hospitality, entertainment, and aviation jobs. And as you can see, new job postings have dropped by about 40% in just a few weeks. We conduct a survey every couple of weeks, and we get the pulse of 10 to 11,000 blue-collar workers during this rapidly changing environment. And in mid-March, the thing that associates were most concerned about was their job and their income. And in just 14 days' time, in April, it was the health of their family members that was their greatest concern. Now that we seem to have peaked, some states are starting to reopen for business, and the workers' greatest concern has shifted back to their job and their income. There are two new factors in the fight for talent. As employers, you're used to competing with a facility down the street for talent, but now there are two new competing forces that we've never had to contend with before. And the first is the COVID-19 virus itself, which is creating obstacles for attracting and retaining workers. You know, there are state and county curfews that are impeding workers' ability to actually even get to work. Of course, there's the fear of exposure to the virus itself, and there is the need to backfill workers who have been exposed or who have family members who have been exposed. So there's more absenteeism. And if you're trying to increase your staff, now because of the virus, you have to figure out how to test and interview and even onboard people without face-to-face contact. And the second new factor that we have to contend with is the unintended consequences associated with the federal government stimulus package. People who qualify for unemployment benefits will receive an additional $600 a week from the CARES Act, and they'll receive that money through July 31st. A combination of state and federal weekly payments will mean that many hourly associates will actually receive more money each week by staying at home versus going to work. Of course, that's short-lived, but that may be prevalent throughout this workforce. What we're seeing from Frontlines regarding attracting new applicants is well illustrated in this graph from Indeed. The big spikes that you see in this graph occurred when Amazon and Walmart announced an increase in their base wages. We'd like to offer some considerations as we all prepare for the next new normal. All the companies that we support have had to pivot to respond to the next normal. And there's a few examples on this slide. We've also had to do the same. For example, we've had to deal with the total disruption of our operations in EmployBridge as well. As the largest industrial staffing company in the country, we rely a lot on person-to-person contact and we had to change our operations virtually overnight to a totally remote process without limiting our ability to fill these important positions within the supply chain. Being on the front line of the supply chain with our customers every day, we'd like to share some examples of how organizations are rising to the new challenge. I won't go into detail on each topic, but you can see that companies are reconfiguring workspaces and they're modifying schedules. Though also, many of them are requiring temperature monitoring before each shift. And of course, they've increased sanitation. I can't help but chuckle at the fact that the position of sanitation, which was previously not very admired, is now thought to be the single most important position in the entire facility. I want to give a big shout out to all of the sanitation workers who are finally getting their well-earned respect. We'll be sharing some of the best practices from operations around the country as we learn about them. So if you have a best practice that you'd be willing to share with the rest of the country, please let us know. You can contact your local EmployBridge associate, or you can email us at insight@employbridge.com. Once again, I'm Brian Devine, and I want to thank you for your time. And I'll be looking forward to talking to you again next week. In the meantime, take good care of yourself and the ones you love.